Alright, so MLB The Show has been out for about a few days now. I've been playing it for a little bit over a week because I got the deluxe edition. And I'm just going to go over a few hitting tips. Um, for background, I have been playing on GOAT difficulty, and last game I played when I would play in practice or offline, I would play in Legend with all the sliders turned up. So I got pretty good at seeing the ball from that, and last year was probably my biggest jump in skill that I've ever seen. I went from maybe a couple years ago playing on Hall of Fame to last year playing on Legend with all the sliders turned up. Um, so I'm going to be going over what my tips are, a few hitting tips. First, I'm going to start with settings. Honestly, I don't think settings matter too much as long as you're using zone hitting. Zone hitting gives you the best chance of controlling where the ball goes because whatever happens to the ball, wherever it goes, how hard it's hit, depends completely on you and where you put your PCI. So use zone hitting, buttons for swing input. I'm just going to go down the list here very briefly. Guest pitch, that'll be off because we don't use it online. PCI anchor, this is completely up to you. So I used to use PCI anchoring a lot when it first came out a few years ago. I don't use it as much, but anchoring your PCI can be really good if you're having some trouble getting your PCI to certain parts of the zone. So, for example, if you're having a hard time with the high pitches, you might want to start it up here with the anchor so you can get it a little bit higher. You might want to move it a little bit lower if you're having a hard time getting to low pitches. Maybe you want to start inside if you're having a hard time getting to inside pitches. Outside if you're having a hard time getting to outside pitches, or just start in the middle. I usually just start my PCI in the middle, but sometimes I will move it to other parts of the zone. Sometimes I manually move it too. Sometimes I don't use an anchor. I'll just push my finger up maybe a little bit. That's usually what I do. So that's going to be my first tip, is make sure you have your PCI placed in an area where you have the best chance of getting to every pitch. Alright, let's go back to settings. Okay, so here, this is what I use for my PCI. I use circle as basically the default. You can mess around with it. It doesn't matter for me. I haven't found it's better or worse using anything else. Let's see, I changed the outer, I believe. I believe I set that to none. For opacity, don't do anything above 70% in my opinion. You should probably be on 60%. The reason why is if you have the PCI too thick, it can kind of hide the ball sometimes, like especially if you have your PCI set in certain areas, like close to where the pitcher throws the ball, maybe like usually high. So nothing above 70%, really. I remember I used to use it at 100, and that actually worked well for me for a little bit, but then it got to be too much, so I had to bring it back down. Yeah, so those are my settings for hitting. Now let's get into some more general hitting tips. I forgot to mention one more thing before we get into some general hitting tips. Well, a couple things, and I think the first most important tip would be control freaks. So basically what that is there's a website online where you can buy precision reins and grips for your remote control, for your controller, my bad. And basically what it does is it stops you from jamming. The precision reins stop you from jamming your PCI. The PCI without a precision rein, it can be very fast. It can be very easy to jam because of that. It's a little bit hard to control. So what a precision rein does is basically wrap it around your joystick and it slows down the movement, so it makes it more precise and harder to jam any of your joysticks. So there are a few different precision rein settings that they come with. So they have like a medium, low, and high. I believe the high is like black, the medium is purple, and like the low is green. I use the green one. I believe that's low. So I have a good amount of control over it, but it's pretty good at slowing down the movement, so it's gonna reduce some of the jams. some of the jamming. And then I use the Galaxy grip on my left joystick to just grip the joystick a little bit better. That's honestly the #1 tip. If you want to be playing at a competitive level, or just at not even at a competitive level, but just a higher level in general, you have to use the control freaks. The top players are all using it. I can't think of a single top player who doesn't use any control freaks. The next tip would be to have a good monitor. You don't need to have a great monitor. Honestly, I've been playing MLB The Show my entire life on TVs, which is not good. But you should have, if you want to be playing on a higher level, having a monitor with a good response time is what you want. I don't think honestly, response time is very important, but I've been able to play pretty well with TVs. I mean, I'm using a monitor now, but it's not the greatest monitor. So just having that response time with a good controller and a good monitor is definitely what you want. I don't think it's the most important thing ever, because again, I've used pretty crappy monitors and still done pretty well, but it just gives you that extra boost. So getting a good monitor for sure is another tip. Okay, now I'm going to be going over other more general hitting tips. So the first tip will be your view. So basically, your camera angle. When I first started playing, would use a camera angle where I could see my character. That makes the strike zone smaller and harder to get to the ball. So the best strike zones to use, or hitting cameras to use, are strike zone or strike zone high. I use strike zone. Strike zone high is a little bit better if you can't get, or just if you're not seeing those low balls really well. Strike zone high is good for that. But I just use strike zone. I think it's better. It's a little more even. So that's the hitting view that you should be using. Then there's just practice. So to get better, obviously you need to practice, but you should be going into practice mode. You should be picking pitchers that are usually throwing a little bit harder, who throw pitches that maybe you're struggling with, whether that be sinkers or cutters. This is Garrett Cole. I kind of struggle with cutters in the game, and Garrett Cole throws a pretty good amount of cutters. Like right there's a cutter. So what you can actually do is you can go into practice mode and you can manually select what type of pitches you want him to throw, where you want him to throw it, and how often. I do that if I'm starting with a certain pitch, but mostly when I go into practice mode, I like to keep it default so that the pitcher can just throw whatever. So that teaches me to recognize pitches, and not just look. Here's the problem with clicking a certain pitch. You could just get too used to that pitch, and you'll not learn how to hit that pitch after an additional pitch. So, for example, maybe you are starting with cutters. You learn how to hit a cutter, but now you're seeing knuckle curves, and you're just looking for cutters, and now you're struggling to hit the knuckle curve. So I like to keep it so that the pitcher throws a decent mix, his default mix, so he just throws whatever. So I'm seeing all of his pitches, and I'm not just knowing for sure which pitch is coming. So that's practice mode. An additional tip, use short movements. You need to make short movements with the PCI. Practice this a lot. You need to practice, and you gotta go into practice mode, and you gotta practice making very small movements with the PCI. It gets the PCI to the ball quicker, and it just makes it, you get to the ball quicker, it's faster, it's more accurate, it's going to stop jamming. You got to practice making short, small, controlled movements. An additional thing, you should be playing on a harder difficulty when you're practicing. Put the sliders up. Go an additional difficulty or two higher. That's what I've always done, and that gets me ready for whenever I want to play online, or if I'm playing on offline and I just want to hit better. One more thing, this is new to this year, ambush hitting. I'm not the biggest fan of ambush hitting. I feel like the payoff isn't worth it, but if you know a certain pitch is coming, let's say it's coming inside, use the right joystick to select the inside zone, and you can just wait for an inside pitch if you know that's coming, and it'll give you a bigger PCI, and that'll allow you to hit the ball a little bit better. Let's say there's an outside pitch coming. You're looking for that. You can set the ambush to the outside using the right joystick to set it to the left. Use this if you're going to use this in early counts. Don't use it late, or else you'll strike out. But yeah, so those are my biggest hitting tips for MLB The Show. Any other tips you've got, you can leave them in the comments. I will be uploading very soon a pitching tutorial video. So yeah, that's about it, guys. So have a good rest of your day, and yeah.